Happy Community Manager Appreciation Day 2016. We are now on hour 16 of 24. And, Community Manager Appreciation Day, we've been doing this as a community for about 7 years, for exactly 7 years, actually, when Jeremiah Owing tweeted out that he thought that the fourth Monday of every January would be a great time to celebrate community managers. And that's what we're doing today. For the last 4 years, we've been doing Hangouts. For the last 3, they've been 24 hours. And for the last 3 years, sponsors have helped us recognize outstanding community managers in our industry. And this year we had over 300 nominations for awards, which is really awesome. And we hope that this just continues to grow. My name is Brew, the Director of Awesome with BTC Revolutions, as well as co-producer of My Community Manager. And really excited to be here today and guys through the panel.
Hey guys, I'm Sherry Rohde. I'm the Community Manager at Magento and co-producing GR Hangout and My CMGR.
Hey guys, I'm Brock. I am the founder of Amplify Your Biz, and I am the Community Manager for Meshfire here in Seattle.
Hey guys, I am Dom, Community and Project Manager for BTC Revolutions, as well as co-host with Sherry and Brew for Community Manager Hangout. Wanted to take some time here up at the top of the panel to thank our award sponsors. We've been talking about it all day. All of these sponsors really are just fantastic, and we wouldn't have been able to throw this baller of an event without them. So wanted to give them their time to shine. So thank you very much to Meshfire, to Igloo Internet, to Amplify Yourself, to socialmedia.org, communitymanagement.org, Zoomf, Sprout Social, Vanilla Forums, Higher Logic, Online Community Results, and Salesforce Community Cloud. You guys are absolutely fantastic, so thank you very, very much. And then we have another award to give out. This is actually personally one of my favorite awards because I get to say that it's the lol 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 award, and it goes to the funniest community manager. And there was some awesome finalists. You guys are actually pretty darn funny. And so if we can get a bit of a drum roll, the winner is Tommy Carpenter, head of the Minecraft forums. So congratulations to you, Tommy. You're a funny man. So everybody go and tweet at Tommy and ask him to tell you a joke, because he's apparently the funniest community manager on the internet.
And just not to be on the spot, but do you know Tommy's Twitter?
It's Chev. Yeah, we do know his Twitter, and it will be in the tweet that Brock is about to put out right now.
Boom, perfect. Okay, great. All right, everyone. So this next panel is called Building Relationships to Ignite Movements. Again, it's panel 16 out of 24. And Ayelet, take it away.
Thanks. Thrilled to be here. I'm filling in for somebody you may know, Tim McDonald. I obviously don't look like him, but Tim and I are busy co-creating a new movement and building community around life working, so I'm thrilled to be here with everybody. Would love to do some introductions. Maybe we could start a little bit with you, Brittany.
Sure. I'm Brittany, not winner of the Funniest Community Manager Award. I work at Blab.
Great. And Savannah, what about you?
Absolutely. I am Savannah Peterson, and I'm a community evangelist, builder, used to manage Shapeways, global community. All the maker nerds come to me, and I love them.
Great. And Renee, what about you? And maybe you could start off the conversation with what your definition of a community member is.
Okay, I'm Renee Hopkins. I am the Director of Engagement at the Business Innovation Factory, and I've also been the Community Manager here and a community member here for probably 7 or 8 years before I came to work here. So my definition of community manager would be community member is someone who's actually engaged in a community. They may or may not be a customer, that they don't, those two groups don't equal each other for me, but it's someone who's actually engaged in the community, not necessarily someone who has joined for whatever reason. So I mean that's my shot at it.
And Brittany, do you see that community member in the same light? Is that also a customer for you, or how do you look at community members?
So I think it's pretty similar. Anyone who feels engaged or wants to interact with the product and talk to other people using it, I think those are community members who are trying to change what they're using for the better or give suggestions. They're just actively involved.
And how do they get involved? So talk to me a little bit about engagement.
So our Blab is a platform that's pretty easy to get involved, whether they're chatting in the chat or they're on screen on video. It's really easy to kind of tell who is engaged. A lot of users write blog posts about your product. They'll send emails, even as viewers. So when you're viewing, you're also an active community member as well.
Great. And Savannah, what makes a community member in your world?
I think community is all about caring, and anyone who cares about your brand, whether that's as a paying customer, as an observer, as an evangelist, or a personality. And caring can be either way. They can care because they're upset or because they're excited. And I think it's just having an emotional reaction to your brand makes someone essentially a community member or a potential community member.
Great. Rachel, welcome. We're just doing introductions and also getting a perspective on what a community member means to you in your world.
Sure. So I've been working in community for about 8 years, and then prior to that was a marketer. And I think what makes a community member is that shared passion toward whatever the mission is. So it may be initially it may be passion for what something a brand is doing or a product that they offer, but usually the sense of community goes above and beyond that kind of thing.
Right. So I think one of the most important things as we enter the 21st century is trust, relationships, and community. There are definitely new currencies that are pretty old out there. When it comes to relationships with the community members and building community, what are some of the tips you have and some of the things that you've seen that works really well and doesn't work at all? Renee, maybe we could start with you.
Sure. For us, our experience here at the Business Innovation Factory has been that our community feeds off of the one big event that we have. I mean, that could be because we only have the one big event. If we had others, it would be maybe they would feed off of those too. But we have a big summit every September, and people come there, and the conversation on Twitter just builds to that point, and it's crazy the whole week of that event, and then people are still talking about it afterwards. So I would say the opportunity to really connect, and the fact about in person, I think, might be because there's the opportunity to have a really interactive, like face-to-face, immediate connection. So the opportunity for that, I think, is it's an excellent thing. It doesn't mean that you can't do that online. I think it's harder to do it online.
Harder in what way?
It's harder to get the. I think it's a lot harder to get the interactive, piece going. It's a little harder to get the interactive. It's harder than face to face. There aren't as many cues. Smiles, whatever, unless you get on a chat. There aren't as many, I don't know, the communication is just missing some things. That said, I have been part of a number of primarily online communities for a long time where we never met each other until, 6 years in, and felt like we knew each other immediately. So, it's just, there's a quality of the connection that bonds people together, whether it's a shared interest or whether this group desire to to push a movement forward or show love for a brand. It's there has to be a really deep connection. I think it's easier to do in person, but it's, you can do it online too.
So when it comes to relationship building, Brittany, where are you on that? What are you seeing that in terms of community?
So I actually, because we do video conversations, we do get a lot of the face-to-face interaction with our community members, and I have sort of been the kind of person who spends most of my free time with my community because we've ended up becoming connected in this friendship kind of way. We'll all spend hours in the middle of the night just talking to them and hanging out with these people. And I'm like, so the easiest way for me to kind of build relationships with community members was to actually become a member of the community myself. I'll show up, and I'm not just Brittany from Blab. People are not scared that I'm going to ban them because I have a very off sense where it's like, okay, now I'm not working. I'm here like you guys are, and I enjoy your company. So I think becoming an active user of your own product or whatever you're trying to build a community around is super important. If you don't like what you're building, if you would not want to be a community member, then you're not building a strong enough community.
Do you see that as having a job, or is relationship building just a part of how you work?
I think it's sort of just how I naturally am. It's not really me working. Otherwise, I would be working like 24/7, which I guess is kind of close and accurate. But I kind of replaced like watching like Netflix in the middle of the night to like hanging out with these community members instead. And I find benefit in that because it's just I like to be social, and I'd rather not leave my house and be social at the same time.
Savannah, what about you? What about building relationships out there? What's your take on it?
Relationships are everything. The relationships you have with your community are what sustain it, and that's in both good times and bad. Mm-hmm. And I think it's very easy for people to understand how community members are wonderful and everything's great. But one of my favorite anecdotes, and one of the reasons I'm always an advocate for very direct personal relationship building, is when I was at Shapeways, we had some site downtime. We actually had 19 hours of downtime on December 21st. And for those of you who don't know, this was a year ago, Shapeways is an e-commerce platform, so the largest 3D printing marketplace in the world. So people do things on our site around Christmas, and while the site was down, we managed to rally the community to share pictures of their pets and their 3D prints, and this eventually led to someone sharing a picture of their reindeer and their 3D printed Santa swag. And as a result, actually 48 hours later, so the longest downtime the site had experienced since Hurricane Sandy, is then completely revamped by Santa and his reindeer coming to the Shapeways factory on Christmas Eve. And that's all completely free, completely community-powered. Doesn't happen if I don't have those kinds of relationships with my community and others.
Great. And Rachel, what about you? Where do relationships fit in?
I think for me, don't ask too much too soon is really important. It's something that I've been living in real life for the past month. I decided for Community Manager Appreciation Day today that I would undertake a project, a fun project, to curate songs about community from community managers. And I knew that it would come down to a personal ask for anyone I wanted to participate, but it was really, I don't know if you know the work of CMX and Douglas Aiken and Airbnb and the commitment curve, but you really can't ask too much too soon. And it was just an exciting event. I got 37 songs. I was thrilled, and lots of people kind of rallying for that. So yeah, that's really vibrant in my mind right now. Are you asking too much too soon, right? Are you asking them to make a contribution when they first haven't lurked enough or spent enough time?
So for somebody who's new in this area, what is asking too much? Can you give us an example?
So they're different content interaction styles. So there's the like, right? There's the share, which is a bit deeper, which means I like your whatever you have so much that I'm going to share it out to my networks. There's commenting on what you're doing. There's interacting with comments back, right? It's like a commitment curve up a scale. There's downloading, maybe it's downloading content. But then there are things like come to the special group if you have do you have an interest in XYZ subtopic? Come to the special group and engage there. It really it's that latter process of how do you take them through that journey, because you can't just expect them to come into that special interest group right off the bat.
Which takes us into the topic of movement, and I'm going to ask you, Brittany, this because you talked about becoming part of the community. What does a movement mean to you when you're part of the community, and how do you ignite others to join your movement?
So I think a lot of it, we start by doing things like setting an example, so leading by example. Just the way I'll communicate with people who aren't using our platform, if we're trying to bring new users on, just having them see me publicly address people gives a little bit of an example of the best practices, as well as we'll host blabs together and brainstorm ideas, and I kind of let them in on this product discussion talk or give them a little bit of insight. But then you tell them what we need. It's like, what does Blab need to succeed? And community members will come up and say, okay, I can do that. I can help with this. So at the end of their interviews, they talk to their guest about potential ways they could use Blab. So they're trying to create guests into creators. And that's something we just sort of initiated by showing an example of. At the end of our talks, we'll talk to that person about an example they could use, and we started seeing our community members do the same thing. Monkey see, monkey do sometimes.
I love that you got the planet and the animals in here. Renee, I absolutely love BIF and the Business Innovation Factory, and I'm always amazed at how well you guys keep in touch and keep the conversation going with people. What does a movement with innovation and what you're creating in the world mean, and how do you get your community members engaged and ignited?
Again, it really goes back to our public-facing summit in September. Our Business Innovation Factory is an innovation consultancy. We are a nonprofit, and we work to help social systems transform, one project at a time. So healthcare, education, government, these are the areas where we work. And so we are a natural magnet for people who are interested in innovation in those spaces. And when people come to the summit, which has no theme, it's just, it's TED-like talks we've been doing for 11 years. And the stories that are told inspire all these conversations, and then this connection happens, and people don't forget that. They don't forget where and how, what the circumstances were, where they were able to make a connection that in some cases I've heard of would change someone's life, allowed them to do something that they were trying to do to change the world, allowed them to meet someone who was a storyteller who in fact did potentially do something that changed the world. So we model the summit and all of our other interactions, frankly, on this model that we help people connect, we give them stories to inspire them and inspire them to tell their own stories, and then when they go out, they are able to transform themselves or their community or the world. So I think it's people are drawn to us because of their subject, the subject that we're in, the areas that they support, healthcare, as I said, education primarily. So that and providing them, an opportunity to make a really strong connection, I think is how it works.
Great. And Rachel, what about you in your world? How do you ignite? Do you use matches or other forms?
I think for me, what I've seen in past work with community is around emotion, shared emotion. I was at Cisco, and a lot of our community glue, I know you're smiling because we were there at the same time, was around passion, so extremes of emotion. Part of what made our community grow was people would log in and say, you know, I passed my Cisco certification exam, or I failed for the third time. And either way, we saw a big outpouring of support from the community. So, you know, very technical people, technical bodies of knowledge, you know, professional development path, and it was really the emotion that brought out the outpouring and the glue. So that was powerful. It's really powerful.
Savannah? You back?
Sorry, my connection's been like really janky. Thank you, internet world. Blab, I love you. Have I said that today? Sidebar. So can you just repeat the question for me, because I was kind of in transition when we started this particular topic.
No worries. I was just testing whether you were still there, because we had two of you.
Yes.
We're talking about movements and community. How do you ignite the people to care and to join you in a movement?
Absolutely. I think, not to be the one always talking about feelings, but I think there's a lot of feelings in community, and I think it's all about passion and igniting passion. I had the great pleasure and honor of helping write the congressional text for the National Day of Making when Obama declared that 2 years ago, and got to work with a lot of people on bringing together the first ever National Day of Making here in America and trying to make it a global movement.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
We love the internet. Bring Savannah back.
How to connect those different passionate niches around whatever it is that you're trying to create.
Great. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. So one of my biggest passions is to talk about purpose. And I find that, you know, a lot of times we spend part of our lives finding our own purpose, and then finding other people to share purpose with. And life and business would be a lot easier in community if purpose was better defined than mission and vision statements. Because I don't know about you, I don't want to remember, and I want to know what's in the heart. So I'll talk about feelings a bit too, Savannah. So when you think about purpose, exactly, what do you think we could be doing differently to create more shared purpose in the world? Like, does anybody here not agree that it's important? Like, can we just get that out of the way and maybe talk more about what do you do to create that shared purpose in community? For me, it's always crazy that people don't. When you put online in front of community, people forget what community is. Well, every single person on earth is part of a community, and there's kind of a loss on that. So who wants to jump in here around purpose? Anybody?
Sure. I think that purpose requires definition. So in the same way a company needs a mission statement and a vision and sort of their company values and morals, I think every community needs that too. And that should be a collaborative thing. I think as leaders of communities, it's our job to make that initial architecture and build that spine. But I think the nerves and neurons that run off that central nervous system are community influenced and community created. And I think it's really interesting how communities will self-moderate versus get modded. And not that we need to go down that rabbit hole, but I think that if communities are all united under one umbrella, it's incredibly easy for them to be efficient. I actually want to share a super fun example of this surrounding Bronies. So for those of you who don't know who the Bronies are, they are grown men who like My Little Pony. The female version of this is Pega's sister, so don't worry, this is not a gender-specific sexist thing. But the Brony community is founded on the principles of peace, love, and magic. No behavior of anyone in the Brony community can be anything that is not peaceful, loving, and magic, which is pretty fucking brilliant if you ask me. And an example of how this was actually very effective, so at Shapeways, people were customizing their My Little Ponies and 3D printing them, and they were selling them, which is a copyright infringement. So we had what we called happen, which was Brony-pocalypse, where Hasbro sent us a DMCA takedown. We had to remove thousands of My Little Pony models from our site. And typically when this would happen with copyright work, the community affected would get very angry, get very pissed off at whoever the big parent company was, whether it was Nintendo or Hasbro in this case, didn't matter. And but what was so cool is the Bronies said, wait a minute, guys, we are peaceful, loving, and magical. Why don't we all write letters to Hasbro and tell them how much we would like to license their trademarks and make our ponies? And about 7 months later, we launched the first partnership with Hasbro in conjunction selling custom My Little Ponies. And I think that the reason they were so successful, I mean, that was the first open source toy partnership in the history of making things. So they were so successful because not only do they have a defined purpose, but their purpose is also freaking awesome. And it made it very easy for them to have impact.
Great. Renee, what about you? Where does purpose fit in?
Well, I totally agree with the idea that you have to communicate the purpose. I mean, in order to have a shared purpose, everyone has to understand, what that purpose is, and then people have to be able to work toward that purpose in their own way. They need the tools. They need to be able to connect with each other, and not just a top-down connection from the top of their community. To be able to actually make their own steps toward this shared purpose. So it's there's a sort of like a part-whole thing going on there, and we believe in stories here. I mean. Brittany's been telling a lot of stories. I mean, we believe in stories, and that those are the kind of that's the narrative, is how you change the world. No one understands, what a difference a change would make until someone tells them a story about how a change could happen or how change has happened. That empowers people, and it serves as sort of a narrative framework for people to be able to move forward. So I would say, tools and story and enabling everyone to connect with other people. And I think I let you know that we're into ruckus here, what we call ruckus, the random collision of unusual suspects. So one of the nice things that focus does for us is that it gets people have to be, connected by purpose. They're not in the same field, they may not be, in the same part, there's just nothing that connects people other than the purpose and the connection itself. And that energy is really, really important to us.
And connections are everything, because it goes back to relationships and trust and community. So Rachel, or Brittany, do you have a great story about shared purpose and creating shared purpose?
I do. I think I've seen shared purpose be in a community that a brand created, but it was more that was driving our contributors to literally give back in a way where some of them were on sort of the darker side of the purpose, in that I don't want another customer of said brand to go through what I went through with their products. And the brand actually did acknowledge this in its own way, privately. I mean, it was more a conversation between me and the team, but what the brand felt sort of in response was that every contributor has something to give, no matter what their level of experience and expertise. And I think that really can tap into purpose. I mean, I think that the challenge with that kind of thing going on in your community is you've got real harsh critics who are outspoken and verbal, and they're not going to go away because their shared purpose is around using your product or your service, and they may not be so nice about it because they see how it can be better and they want to help others. So I think that's the anecdote that I've seen in action.
Mm-hmm. Brittany?
So I guess, yeah, I always have a story. We saw a big shared purpose together. Our community came together and they wanted to acknowledge creators, and that's something our team wants to do as well. So having that shared purpose with our community, our community created their own award show, and they created graphics for it. They were promoting it, and they really just put this whole thing together, and they had awards and like ratings, and everyone was nominating people, and then they came together and they were all in suits and like tuxedos, and they had singers to come in the break, and they really threw together this whole event to celebrate the community, which is something we try to do every day. And it was really great having them understand the importance of acknowledging great creators as well, because sometimes it's hard for us to kind of facilitate all that. It's almost a full-time job what they were doing themselves for this show, and it was really beneficial. So now we're thinking as a team, we should create, we should help make it even bigger. We should, like, I guess theirs was like a proof of concept. Like, holy shit, this is amazing. We should probably make it more official and kind of help them make it bigger and stronger next time.
Do you feel like you can experiment more? I mean, because you're igniting a movement, or is it more policy and kind of sticking to the script?
I'm pretty much experimenting all the time, and everything I'm doing, I'm like, I don't know if this would be okay, but no one's done it, so I do it anyway, and then I either learn something like, oh my god, I should never do that again, we should pretend that didn't happen, pretend I'm not part of that, or how do we double down and do that again, or how do we encourage community members to do what I'm doing differently, because sometimes their voice is more powerful than a team member.
Do you think, I'm going to ad lib here, what do you guys think about the role of the community manager when it comes to igniting movement? Do you think that's an expectation? Is that something that the companies you work with are looking for, or is it something that just comes out of it because your shared purpose is so linked with what you're working on? Who wants to jump in on that?
It's definitely an expectation here because we are about movement, we are about transformation. So, I mean, that's almost, I mean, it may even be in the job description, I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. I'm just curious because, you know, we talk about it as kind of something that people do, but if you're really building community and movements and, you know, you look back at history of how things were done before we had the technology to connect us and live in an open and connected world, people did it all the time. And yet we look at the constraints of how definitions of jobs are. Anybody else here feel that, you know, building a movement and igniting a movement is part of your day-to-day world?
I think so, yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
It definitely,
kind of, yeah, it like came accidentally. Like, you don't realize you're doing it, and it's really just a personality trait. I think a lot of us can probably say we're more natural-born leaders than followers, and as a community manager, it makes sense that all of a sudden people start following your actions and kind of looking up to how you're doing things, because we do things without thinking like thinking about the negative. We're doing things just very quickly and assertively and confidently, and that's very easy to replicate.
Mm-hmm. And when you think about yourself as a community member, what communities are you part of and active with outside of your day job? Do you have time and energy to participate more broadly in communities? Anybody?
Yeah. So sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I'm very active in communities of community managers. I like the sort of meta existence. But outside of community management as sort of the day job, I belong to a women's dance studio, and it's just for women, as the title implies. And they have built, I've seen them grow from just being sort of an exercise business to a business with a purpose to empower women. And as an offshoot of that, they have ongoing in-person meetings where they talk about leaders for women in business, solopreneurs, and then they're also building a food and nutrition sort of subset off of that. So they really are growing a community, and they're tapping into some of the unique challenges that women face today in our culture, and really hinging that to grow their business as a dance studio.
Okay, I can jump. I have Oh, distracted by a dog. Oh no. Okay, focus. I'm a musician, and one of the best communities in the world that you probably never realized was a community is the bluegrass music community. There's no money to be made in bluegrass, none. So it's all amateurs, and they are in every city that you go into, if you search, you will find, and like on the internet, you will find the Bluegrass Association, and they will list all of the jams and when they are, and you just show up there. When I moved to Boston from Austin, Texas, I found the Boston Bluegrass Union. I showed up at a jam knowing no one at all, and they, brought me in like, oh, you sing? Do you know X? I mean, everybody knows many of the same songs. Like there's a little, group of songs, and it's people from all over. Like I don't even know what the politics of some of these folks are, and they're all ages. But it's a great community because there's a purpose. There's an activity that draws us together, and it's just so accessible. It's just a great community. It's inspiring to be part of.
It's great. And Savannah, I saw you had a little visitor too here. What about other communities you're part of?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a dog mom. Obviously, Martini is my little rescue mutt there, and yeah, it's really kind of fun and almost a little embarrassing to think about the communities that we're a part of independently, because I think I'm sure I'm not just speaking for myself here when we really live, eat, breathe, sweat everything, the companies that we work with. And then I think, my personal stuff always feels so much smaller in comparison to that sometimes, but it is also really powerful. So I love dogs. I've harvested wine and made a lot of wine, so I'm a part of the winemaking community as well. And I'm in the process of starting a podcast about women in tech that is spoken through men in tech. So having men introduce the women they know in their life that are super badass so that they feel empowered by that. And then also getting to tell their stories. Because I think we silo gender a lot, and it's about all of us working together to actually become equal. So yeah, I'm pretty much always engaging with humans. I feel like Brittany and I, despite being very close to each other geographically, are intersecting online more and more, and I hope that happens with more of you after today.
That's great. And Brittany, I saw the live dog. What other communities do you partake in?
Oh, that was a cat.
Oh, that was a cat. Sorry. Can we see the cat again?
She's not the most beautiful creature.
Aw.
So the biggest community I'm part of outside of work is improv. So I'm part of our local improv community in San Francisco, and I do shows every other weekend in the Mission, and I hang out with this big group of weirdos who are exactly like me, and it's very awesome. So I think that one is the biggest community I'm a part of. Other like online communities, I've kind of limited them because when I'm online, I'm really just focusing on work communities.
Mm-hmm. So I apologize for the cat. It's a beautiful cat. And I'll have to come out since I'm in San Francisco and experience your improv.
Oh, definitely.
We should go together. I didn't know you're in a SF. Yeah. That's awesome.
That's great. See?
We're fan.
We're building community right here.
I would love that. I'm in the Bay too, so
we'll have to get Renee out.
Yeah, no, I'm a singer too, so let's do something. That would be great. Yeah.
Excellent.
There we go, building community.
Right. At the last BIF Summit, we actually had a jam at my house because there were people coming that we had been talking online, and it was like, oh yeah, you're a musician too? I'm like, yeah, let's just get together at my house. That was really fun.
Cool. I think relationship building in action here with just such amazing women. So last question here before we wrap up. The question is about opportunities. One of the things that I do a lot of work with is moving us towards possibilities and really looking at opportunities. And the question here is, what do you see as the biggest opportunities and tips that you have for community managers? And Renee, maybe you could start us off.
Yes. Even though I said a lot about connecting online and that kind of thing. We've effectively used Twitter, I think, because we got on it kind of at the right spot, and now, of course, we need to know what's the next Twitter. But we actually are building an online platform now for our community. So I just feel like it's, if you can give them more channels or more ways to get together, I mean, that's really good. But we feel like we need to be able to give people an opportunity to connect, more than just a few months a year.
And does that, where do conversations, what tips do you have for someone who's trying to figure out how to do it between events?
Between events? Oh, man. Well, we basically do it by content. I mean, we've archived every single video of 11 years of summits, and, we pull that out from time to time. We share it with, different prompts and context, pull it into, I mean, this is all pretty much basic content strategy, but, since we're asking people, or we're making it possible to basically connect by stories, so, sharing those stories, and that's really the resharing of the same stories. I mean, it's like we're all sitting around a campfire together, telling the stories over again, and that little sitting by the campfire, is really, to me, that's a metaphor for a really close community.
That's an interesting way to describe it. Leashing. I like that.
So, Brittany, what
give
about
people something?
Oh, sorry, there's some echo. Does anybody hearing that? Yes. Okay. We don't know who is talking, but it's definitely a male voice. So, sorry, Renee. Do you have something? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Brittany, what about opportunities and possibilities for igniting movements?
I think a lot of the stuff I do is really just, it lives on Twitter and Medium. I think there's a lot of potential for writing on Medium to kind of ignite discussion outside of the community manager circle. Before I became a community manager, I literally didn't know it was a job. I think it's something that should be maybe brought up to people, or I think it's starting to become more important and relevant for communities to have someone fill this role, because it's not something they had thought about before. I think really that's kind of all I would suggest, is write your stories and your personal findings and things you experience, and try to spread that word to as many people as possible, so they know kind of what you do, or how you can do it better.
I think it's also a really awesome opportunity when you've met IRL or you've had an event and you create a closed private group for the people that were at that event. I think one of the things I see people do is they force conversation to be on platform. And I don't think it all has to be on platform. They do it for a metrics purpose, not because it's actually where people want to be talking. And in addition to sort of the home native platforms in which my communities live, I often have private Facebook groups for very specific segments. And that allows people to not only continue the specific conversation that we had at that event, not just about our community as a whole, but that in particular, but also really feel safe, because they feel like they know everyone who's listening to that. And what I've found in small groups like that, especially on Facebook, you can pretty much eliminate trolls if you keep it tight. If somebody is not conducive to the community, goodbye. I heavy mod on those. That's not our general platform. That's only if you're going to contribute to this core conversation and the betterment of our movement. So, yeah, little quiet core conversations I think are good too. Mm-hmm. Not all the conversation has to happen in the same place, because it's also diverse.
Right. Rachel?
I think for me, I'd like to see more igniting of movements in the business world. So in my recent travels, the adventures were about igniting the idea of community around the organization, mm-hmm. and educating about the possibilities to affect the business metrics, not to be so business oriented, but I think when you really spread that passion and you build a community internally first, if you're going to host an external community, you're going to come out to the customers and to the audience that much stronger because you're unified and passionate about it from many places within the company. And I think there's just a tremendous opportunity because in the business world community, well, what department do you belong to? Well, we actually should belong to every part of the company. But that is a tall order depending on how big your company is and how the organization is structured. But I'd like to see more passion from people who don't even know what community is in all different areas of a business. I think that would be just bringing the idea more central to what they do and really building passion for that is what I'd like to see.
Great. And you know, what's interesting is Tim McDonald and I are busy working, creating a new community and a new passion for business as a force of social good, and really looking at igniting a movement around life working, where we see that work-life balance is a myth. It's a 21st century kind of concept that we were two people. You know, there was professional self and personal self, and somehow we had to figure out who the hell we were. And in the 21st century, we don't have to buy into the scarcity and fear and competition model of the 20th century and really be able to feed into who we are. And it doesn't matter how old you are or who you are or where you live. Each one of us want to show up as whole people in life and have work part of it. And so, you know, often people say to me, what do you do when you're not working? And I'm like, I'm life working. You know, I just do what I'm passionate about. I look for the shared purpose. And the biggest currencies and the most important currencies in the 21st century are trust, relationships, and community. So I commend all of you, amazing women, doing such important work in building community and really looking at it, not just for management, because like building relationships talks about creating the trust, creating the shared purpose, and driving conversations in the world. And to some of your points, it doesn't matter if it happens in the platform or not in the platform, but as soon as more than one person connects with each other, there's huge possibility there. So I just want to say thank you so much for the work that you're doing. And Brittany, hope like in the next 5 years through my work that it's recognized as a really important career in the world for people, because everywhere I go I tell people that they need community, and one of the most important roles for the 21st century is community manager, because we need more conscious 21st century leaders in the world, and community managers are showing the path. So thank you all of you for doing such great work in the world, and look forward to some improv in San Fran soon. Thank you.
Yay.
Thank you, LA.
Thank you guys so much. This was yet another wonderful panel. As always, if you guys tuned in, you can connect with our panelists on Twitter and continue the conversation because it is amazing. And we are going to be back on in about 10 minutes with our next panel and another award recipient. So watch out for that. And to our panelists, again, thank you guys so much for joining us. And we will hope you enjoy the rest of your Community Manager Appreciation Day, and we'll see you guys around. Thanks.
Popcorn for all.